Number 12 is in.
All right, Cover One, the podcast is back. Episode number 50 today. Joining me, as always, Brad Kelly, my special co-host, and we've actually got a special guest for today, Jared Tokarz of NFL Draft Insider, where you can find him on Twitter. He's got a ton of great content coming out all the time. He's here to give us kind of some inside scoops on the trades that have been happening with the Browns. Jared, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing well, very well.
And Brad, how are you after Providence lost yesterday?
I'm doing pretty well. They had a nice run, 3 straight overtime games in 3 days. So I was just happy to see the game end. I didn't want any more them to play anymore. And I'm ready for Selection Sunday, see where they end up in the bracket.
I mean, what do we think?
They covered the spread, though. They covered the spread. That's all I care for me.
Are they going to be the dangerous 8-9 seed that everybody loves?
I think they're definitely an 8 or 9 seed. I would love to see them match up with URI. I don't know the high possibility of that, but if they get matched up with maybe a 1 seed, or if they're a 7 or a 10 seed and get matched up with a 2 seed, and it's like a Duke or a Michigan State, well, I don't know. Watch out for Providence.
They could be a dangerous team. I mean, the way they played against Villanova in that entire Big East tournament, it could be dangerous. Why do you not like Rhode Island? Let me ask that question.
Well, I grew up a Providence fan, and they are rivals. So I guess I just always grew up not liking URI. It's kind of weird. The state's kind of split between the two. Jared, you can probably attest to that.
Yeah, I actually Brad and I went to the same college years apart, but yeah, you had your mix of URI fans, you had your mix of PC Friars, so it didn't really make a ton of sense to me, but definitely split.
And that's your Rhode Island fun fact of the day, that Jared did go to school at Southern University for a period of time, and we actually both played wide receiver, I believe, right?
Yeah, I ended up leaving after training camp, so I never actually saw any time. But technically, me and Brad are both Seahawk wide receivers.
That's fantastic. I mean, it's so crazy, like such a small world. I mean, that's bizarre. Now, did you both go to the similar high school or play against each other at that point?
I'm a little older than Brad, but I played high school football in Mass, and then I think Brad played in Rhode Island. So we never actually played against each other. Right. But yeah, when he reached out, I saw him in his Twitter profile picture in a Salve jersey. I'm like, oh God, small world.
That's crazy. Well, let's get into business and let's talk about the trades that have happened. Tyrod Taylor traded from Buffalo to Cleveland. A third-round pick was involved on that, so the Bills get a third-round pick. And then Jarvis Landry was traded to the Browns for a fourth-round pick and a 2019 seventh-round pick. Miami just clearing up some cap space from what that sounds like to me. And then Danny Shelton to the Patriots. Let's start with the Jarvis Landry trade. Jared, where are you on this? I mean, does this make sense for the Browns? Did they give up too much? Was it a good deal? How do you feel on it?
No, I think it was a very smart move on their part. I mean, granted, they have to take on his contract, but they have the money to do so. And obviously they need to build around, now Tyrod. So I definitely like the moves. They're moving in the right direction. With trading for Tyrod as well, I don't think that's their long-term play. I think what they're doing is buying a good starter for a couple of years, and I still think with that first pick that they should go quarterback. And with that, they don't have to force the quarterback to start right away. I think both were good moves, and they're moving in the right direction there.
Absolutely. Brad, what's your opinion on it with Jarvis Landry?
Well, I think that it was definitely a good move, and maybe they have to overpay as far as money goes, but they have the cap space. You know, we talked about in the last episode that how they had about $113 million in cap space, something around that number. So I think it's okay to overpay a little bit and get a player who is pretty talented. And on top of getting, Jarvis Landry and Tyrod Taylor, now they're kind of starting a base of guys who have some ability, guys who are pretty exciting players. I'd say that both of them are pretty exciting, and maybe that can recruit other free agents. Like, they have the money, but they also have to beat the fact that they're Cleveland, and no one really wants to go to Cleveland to play. Everyone would rather go to Miami. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think part of the fact that they're getting some of these exciting players might lead to guys actually going to Cleveland and playing free agency as well.
For sure. Well, and the thing too now, after all these moves and things like that, Cleveland, they're sitting at around $76 million in cap space, and Miami's still sitting at three over the cap space, $3 million over the cap space. I definitely agree though. Tyrod Taylor, I don't think it's the long-term plan. I would think, maybe a year, maybe two at the most, staying in Cleveland. And I think quarterback at one is very much still on the table. What about Danny Shelton to the Patriots? I mean, it seemed like he was just not a fit in Cleveland with Greg Williams and some of the things that he had them doing. I mean, granted, Williams was dropping him into coverage. He had Jabril Peppers playing 25 yards off the football. So those were questionable things. But, I mean, how does he fit into the Patriots? And is this a steal for the Pats? Jared?
Yeah, I like the move. Obviously, it didn't seem like it worked out too well with the Browns, but this is a very typical Patriots move in my eyes. They always seem to attract the players that he's a former first round pick, have a lot of talent, and maybe just wasn't part of the right situation with the Browns, and then bring them to the Patriots. So hopefully, I think it's a good move for them. They didn't give up too much, and I think it's going to help them on the defense side of the ball for sure.
For sure. And Brad, I mean, you're trying to turn this into a Patriots podcast, so it's only fair that we talk about the Pats here, right?
I mean, it is a Patriots podcast. I just want to throw that out there. But I definitely like the move. Between having Malcolm Brown and Danny Shelton now at defensive tackle, and then you have two players who I think one definitely is an ascending player in Dietrich Wise Jr. at defensive end. He had 6 sacks this year, and then he had 2 in the playoffs. That's an 8-sack season as a rookie. And then they have Derek Rivers coming back from injury. Like, suddenly they have a lot of talent and youth, and obviously you had Trey Flowers, a lot of talent and youth on the D line. I think those players still have to grow into their roles, and they're not there yet. But I think projecting a year or two down the line, that could be a really forceful defensive line.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's definitely a good move. They gave up a 3rd-round pick for next year to do it. And, the Patriots, the way they move picks, it's essentially costing them nothing, because I'm almost certain they'll probably get a 3rd-round pick back for next year's draft when they move out of the 1st round probably. So, I mean, we normally go through draft options, and being that you guys are both Patriot guys, I'll just ask the question now because we're talking about it. What are some plans that you think that the Patriots will do when the draft comes? And this one's for Jared.
Sure. I mean, pending that they don't trade out of their spot where they're now, I think they should look pass rusher. I know, like Brad mentioned, they had Derek Rivers, who was injured all year. But a player that's going to be there, and maybe I'm a little biased being able to watch him so much, Harold Landry performed well at the Combine. I mean, there's a chance that he is there. If not Harold Landry, I think someone like a Sam Hubbard could be there. I think that they need a pass rusher, a solid DN to get that pass rush that they lacked last year. I mean, Landry has some of the best pass rushing technique in the draft. He was injured all year with the bum ankle, so I think people are sleeping on him a little bit. He had a lot more buzz coming out of the year before. He had, I think, something like 16 sacks the year before, and then this year he was hobbled with that ankle. So, I think pass rusher is someone a position that they'll look at. I think cornerback, there's some good cornerback prospects that will be there, or even no tackle as well, because still trying to figure out what's going to happen with Soldier if he stays or goes. So there's still a lot up in the air, but I think those are the 3 positions of need there.
For sure. I mean, on our podcast here, I mean, we're pretty high on Harold Landry. I mean, last week, Brad was pretty much saying he's edge rusher 1. I've got him as a top 15 guy before the Combine, top 15 guy after the Combine. So I'd be shocked if he was there at 31. But as far as the quarterbacks go for this draft, with things like, Tyrod Taylor going to the Browns now, we've all kind of agreed that we still think quarterback's very much in play at number 1. Who's going to be the guy at number 1? Who do you have going number 1, Jared?
This is such a tough conversation that I always have. So my number 1, I think the best quarterback is Josh Rosen. But in terms of fits, in terms of fits for the Browns, I feel like Sam Darnold might be more their guy. In terms of he's the the conversation always comes up is Josh Rosen, is he sold? Is he into football? And I think for the Browns a better fit might be Sam Darnold, just because he seems to be more of a competitor and that type of blue collar guy that could potentially turn around the Browns. I think they're attracted to that. But if I was the Browns, Josh Rosen is the no-brainer pick for me. And with that, he has Tyrod now to sit behind, and he can be plugged in when he's ready. So I think it's the perfect situation for him. He's got weapons now. You have Josh Gordon, you have Corey Coleman, you have Jarvis Landry. So Rosen's my number one. But I wouldn't be surprised if Darnold goes number one either. So it'll be interesting how it shakes out.
For sure. I mean, I'm with you on the whole Josh Rosen QB1 train. Brad, do you have it different? I mean, where are you with we've talked about it before, but we're going into it again now. Has this changed your opinion as far as quarterback?
I definitely think that I struggle with this because when they traded for Tyrod Taylor, I thought that would be a good situation to have DeShone Kizer, be their developmental guy. I think people are lower on Kizer than they should be based on last season. You have a 6'4", 235-pound mobile QB who accounted for 16 touchdowns last season, and he was a second-round pick, but I think I would have taken him in the first. Mm-hmm. I don't know what more you want out of a developmental prospect. Say they take Josh Allen, what's the difference between Kizer and Allen? I think they just wasted the number 4 pick or number 1 pick on Allen when really Kizer is probably just as good. But now that they got rid of him and now he's gone to Green Bay, I think they do need to go quarterback at pick 1 or pick 4, and just get that guy who can kind of like Jared said, can sit for a year, not be pressured into starting right away, and not ruin him like they did with DeShone Kizer. So I think quarterbacks in play at 1 or 4. I don't know which one, and if maybe they like Baker Mayfield best, that they wait and take like Saquon Barkley at pick 1 and then maybe get Baker at pick 4.
Jared, do you think that's a possibility at all? Where have you heard any of that? I mean, you're kind of our insider guy right now. Do you have anything telling you that they go away from quarterback at 1 and potentially go Saquon Barkley?
Based off my conversations, it's pretty tight-lipped. So I'm not sure. I think here's what I think for the Browns is they've missed and passed on quarterbacks like Wentz and Watson for years. Mm-hmm. I think with their 1 pick, I know Barkley is a talent that comes up once every 20 drafts, but they've missed time after time. If they like a quarterback, I think they need to take it at 1. And then at 4, then evaluate their options. I don't think Barkley will be there at 4. So I think there's a good possibility that they end up trading out of that 4 pick for one of the teams that actually needs a quarterback and wants to go after the Mayfield, or if Allen is still there. So I think how it plays out in my head, I think they go quarterback 1 and potentially trade out 4 if Barkley's not there.
Yeah, I think definitely trading out at 4 is probably much an option. I wouldn't be surprised if they stayed and just went best player available, whether that's Minkah Fitzpatrick or Bradley Chubb. I think Bradley Chubb with Myles Garrett would just be filthy. But yeah. What's a trade candidate that they could be looking at trading out of 4? I mean, is Arizona in play? Is Buffalo in play?
Yeah, I mean, those are the two that pop up the most. Obviously, Cardinals, they don't have a quarterback. Bills just traded Tyrod. So that's a pretty telltale sign that they're looking at a quarterback for this draft. So I would not be surprised if the Bills use their pick to trade up and just pretty much swap with the Browns and Browns get a couple more picks. Those are the two teams that should be looking up. Maybe even the Dolphins too, because conversations that I've had that Dolphins are falling in love with Baker Mayfield, and they've met with him multiple times, and who knows.
Right. Well, I know I read some stuff where he was, doing pretty much a private workout with them. He was doing some stuff with Cleveland as well. So, I mean, Baker, I think, has definitely turned a lot of heads from the Senior Bowl to the Combine and everything else moving forward. Free agency is right upon us. Kirk Cousins is being rumored to Minnesota. There's a chance that Case Keenum goes to Denver. How do you see the quarterback carousel kind of playing out through free agency?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because it's going to shake up the whole entire draft. Obviously, if Cousins goes to Minnesota, like it's rumored right now, then you have the Jets kind of freaking out because it seems like the Jets really wanted Cousins and have been trying to sell the farm to him, but I think Minnesota's a done deal. So now the Jets have to change their plans and figure out what they're going to do at quarterback. So yeah, it's crazy. Free agency changes the draft so much, and it's tough to do mocks before this whole free agency rush is going to happen because it's going to change absolutely everything.
Yeah. And I mean, I was doing some reading today and they were talking about the Jets having a ton of money and they're going to be big time players because they pretty much lead the way now with the amount of money that they have at $89 million. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Brad, I mean, where are you as far as the quarterbacks in free agency? I mean, we've talked about it a little bit here and there. Do you think Kirk Cousins to Minnesota's, pretty much a lock? And where do you see the rest of the quarterbacks going?
I think, if Cousins goes to Minnesota, that Case Keenum going to Denver is probably the most likely scenario. And then, kind of like Jared led on to, the Jets, I think they're going to be really pressured into moving up, and they might have to even get into kind of a bidding war with maybe the Colts, or to move up to the Colts pick, but a bidding war with the Dolphins or the Cardinals or the Bills. Yeah. So it's kind of going to be a thing where the Colts at pick 3 might be getting a king's ransom for their choice, and I think that they're probably in the best spot to move down, being at pick 3, and then if the Browns are at pick 4, if there's another quarterback available, like maybe a Josh Allen, but I think the Colts at pick 3 are the most likely candidate to move out of the top 5.
Absolutely. Well, I will say my post-combine mock draft that came out on Monday, and I never do mock trades, and I really only do 3 mock drafts, and this one I have the Jets moving up to 3 with the swapping with the Colts. So you heard it from me first, okay? You heard it from me first. As far as, after probably Sam Darnold had 1, and I mean, we got Josh Rosen as QB1. Is Josh Rosen in play to go at number 2 to the New York Giants, do you think? Or is it Saquon Barkley? What do the Giants do with their quarterback situation?
Yeah, I think they should go Barkley at 2 if Browns don't take him at 1. I think Eli still has maybe 1 or 2 years left, and then I wouldn't be surprised if they take a flyer on a QB in the next couple rounds. But with that said, if Rosen's there, I would have. I think he would be a great fit in New York, and he's an outspoken, intelligent guy, and to sit behind Eli for a couple of years and then take over, I think that's a perfect situation. So, my mind, if Rosen's there, they pick him. If it's Darnold, I think I would rather have Barkley. I think that's a better fit for the Giants at 2.
For sure. I mean, I think, Brad, when we talked about the Giants a few weeks back, wasn't your pro comp for Josh Rosen? Wasn't it Eli Manning?
It was.
Awesome. Well, we're talking with Jared Tokarz at NFL Draft Insider on Twitter. Josh Allen, we haven't really got into him, and we'll leave it at that. Where do we see him falling? I mean, could he be potentially in play as number 1, or is Denver pretty much the ideal landing spot if Miami moves up and gets Baker Mayfield?
I honestly don't see Josh Allen at 1. Sure, he has the big arm, and he had a great combine. It's just those accuracy issues.
Mm-hmm.
They really stick out to me, and they bother me a bit because heading to the next level, typically what you see, accuracy percentage doesn't improve a whole lot, and you're coming from Wyoming and you go in the NFL. The speed of the game is going to change dramatically, so you got to put in play. How much is that? I mean, granted, everyone says he didn't have a lot of talent around him, but you can still. That's kind of a poor excuse on my part. I think a fit for him if the Jets don't trade up. I think at 6, Josh Allen's a good fit there. I think he's going to be a top 10 guy, but number one, probably not.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm with you in agreement on that too. I mean, I think I've got a second round grade on him, and I don't think number one is ideal. But again, it is the Browns. I wouldn't be surprised to see them take a big armed quarterback, especially when you can have a guy sit for a year. I mean, that makes sense. But at the same time, I think going Sam Darnold or Josh Rosen is their best bet. Brad, do you have any additional questions for Jared? Maybe some wide receiver stuff. You guys are wide receiver guys.
This is going to be unrelated. Come on, I can't stay on topic. Jared, if you could pick 4 teams, college basketball teams, before you see the bracket, which comes out later today, before you see it, just pick 4 teams to go to the Final Four. Who would your top 4 choices be?
Oh, geez. I'm a big Purdue guy. For some reason, I just like they got the big man down low in Haas. I like Purdue. I like Villanova. I like Duke.
Oh.
And I'm gonna take a flyer here on a team that's gonna have a little run, make the Final Four. I like West Virginia too.
Okay.
West Virginia always busts the bracket. I mean, every year, every time I pick them, they bust the bracket. Brad, who do you got then? If you're asking him, I got to ask you.
I would go Villanova, Michigan State.
Oh.
I don't want to say Virginia because they're so boring.
Yes, they are.
That defense, though.
Defense travels. Defense travels. I would say North Carolina and I'd probably say Virginia. So Villanova, Virginia, Michigan State, and North Carolina.
Nice. I don't think I have 4. I mean, I don't know. Villanova, Michigan State, give me Duke, and boy,
it's hard. This year's wide open. It's gonna be great.
I'm gonna say Kentucky. Give me Kentucky. That'll be my sleeper for this year. But I don't know. Last time I was liking Kentucky a couple weeks ago, they lost by like 25 points. So we'll see. But yeah, that's all we got for you, Jared. I got nothing else. I wanted to talk quarterbacks. I really appreciate you coming on, giving us some inside stuff on the trades and everything else that you're hearing. I already mentioned the Twitter handle, but where can we – is that right? NFL Draft Insider, is that where we can find you?
Yeah. Website is www.thenfldraftinsider.com. Just where all my interviews are posted and whatnot. But, yeah, definitely appreciate you guys having me on. Fun time for sure.
Yeah, no doubt, man. We'll definitely have you on again, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Yep, thank you. All right, and good stuff from Jared there, and Brad and I are jumping into draft options for the Bengals, the Redskins, and the Packers. But before we do that, I need to let you know, Cover One, the podcast, is brought to you by First Down Playbook. First Down Playbook is the #1 playbook resource for football coaches with over 30,000 plays. First Down Playbook is a database of youth, high school, and flag football plays, color-coded with coaching points for every position on every play. Check it out today at firstdownplaybook.com. That's First Down Playbook, one place, all the football. So, Brad, let's jump into the draft options. The Bengals, they're picking 12th. This is a team that they've got a variety of needs. It sounds like they're going to be letting Adam Pac-Man Jones go. And corner isn't like their biggest need because they've got some players there, Darquiste Dennard, Dre Kirkpatrick. So I think they're okay as far as round 1 corner goes. And they still have William Jackson. I mean, this guy is very underrated in my opinion. I like the thought of offensive tackle personally, Connor Williams, OT tackle or OT1. What direction does Cincinnati go?
I think you just said it. I think they have to go offensive line. They have to be looking to protect their quarterback. I think that Mike McGlinchey and Connor Williams will both be in play. I think it will come down to where they project Connor Williams. After the combine, we talked about how Williams, maybe teams are going to project him as a guard. And if they do project him as a guard and McGlinchey as a tackle, I think that positional value will just kind of go to McGlinchey, and he could be the pick at number 12.
I mean, I think, going after McGlinchey is a smart move, but I don't see him translating as a left tackle. I mean, you already have Jake Fisher, who's playing, I think, a right tackle role. And I think you need a left tackle. And if you're going to go out and you're going to get a left tackle, I think the guy that you get is Connor Williams. And that's just because McGlinchey, in my opinion, is going to be a better spot at right tackle.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think teams will be concerned about Connor Williams' size, and they might say, with his only being 296 at the combine, maybe he is a guard, and then McGlinchey is their top tackle, and they'll go need as opposed to going best player available. You did say about corner. If Denzel Ward is there, I think he's definitely going to be an option. If he survives to pick 12, past the Raiders who could be in play.
Mm-hmm.
That he could definitely be an option. I like you said, I think William Jackson is a good player. They've invested high picks on Drake Kirkpatrick and Darqueze Dennard. So maybe corner isn't a huge need, but if they are going best player available, I wouldn't be surprised if Denzel Ward ends up as the selection as well.
Yeah, I mean, we know how versatile he is, how quick he is athletically. He looked great at the combine, very fluid. And bringing back the point to the offensive tackle, which I think we both are in agreement, with going in that direction. I mean, losing Andrew Whitworth definitely hurt this team more than I think they'll ever know. And that's why I think they went out and got Frank Pollock, the former Cowboys offensive line coach. And I mean, I think fixing the offensive line is definitely the key into this, because they were one of the worst rushing offenses in the NFL last year. They've got a talented back in Joe Mixon. It sounds like they're moving on from Jeremy Hill, and they've got Giovanni Bernard. So that'll be their duo. I'm not going to say a premier left tackle, because I don't think Connor Williams is premier, but I think he's going to be very good. I think him measuring in at 297 isn't very much of or maybe 296, but him coming in a little bit underweight and isn't a problem in my opinion. I think it's just him wanting to test better, doing that type of stuff. And I think if he can get to 305, he'd be just fine. Let's move forward to the Washington Redskins at 13. This team is, I mean, they're all over the place, and they're not bringing back Kirk Cousins. We know that. They went out and traded for Alex Smith, and then pretty much a slap in the face by giving him a contract extension and not really working anything out with Kirk Cousins. And maybe part of it is Cousins just didn't want to be in Washington anymore. But where do they go at 13?
So this is another team that could be in play for Denzel Ward if he survives. I think corner is going to be a need for them, especially after trading Kendall Fuller.
Mm-hmm.
That not only is corner a need, but now that nickel corner, the slot corner, overhang type of player could also be a need. So, I mean, I think in a dream world, a guy like Minkah Fitzpatrick would be the ideal choice, but I don't think he's definitely not going to follow the top 10, not in my opinion. So if they could try to find maybe a guy who they think projects in a similar way, and I think Ward could be a slot corner, almost kind of like Chris Harris, or maybe even a Jair Alexander. But if they go to away from corner, a guy like Calvin Ridley could be there, because I think they do need receivers as well.
Yeah, well, they've got picks, 13, 44, 109, 140, 174, 205, and 215. And I was really going to stop at 140 there. I didn't really feel like going on, but I did. But I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, and I don't like talking about trading down for every team, because I don't think it's realistic for every single team. Sometimes you just got to stay put and take your guy. And if Denzel Ward is there, I think he's definitely the ideal fit. I think corner's number one. Minkah Fitzpatrick, obviously, because there is that versatility where you could potentially line him up as an outside cornerback. I would love to just see him stay at safety. So, I mean, with that, I don't think going Derwin James is on the board so much, just because of the safeties that they have. I know DJ Swearinger, he's not fantastic, and probably Derwin James would be a little bit of an upgrade over him, but they do like Monte Nicholson quite a bit. So I would just be a little bit shocked if they went safety, unless, Minkah was there. But trading down, I think, is an option for them. And I think it's simply for the fact that you have Buffalo at 21 and 22. Let's say, some quarterbacks fall. I don't think it's going to happen. I think we're going to see a team trade up into the top 10. We're going to see 4 quarterbacks go in the top 10. But if there is a chance that a quarterback does, let's say Baker slips out of the top 10 or Josh Allen falls out of the top 10, I wouldn't be surprised if Buffalo moved up and try to get in front of Arizona. And I think this would be an ideal spot. What do you think of that?
I definitely think that's a possibility, because, and like you said with Washington, they choose at 13-44, but they don't choose again until 109. Yeah. So they could be a team that's looking to add more picks, especially in that third round range. So if Buffalo is able to offer one of their first rounders and a third rounder, or maybe both of their first rounders. I don't know how the logistics would work out, but I think the Redskins would be a definite option because it seems like with their lack of those mid-round selections that they're going to be looking at trying to add a mid-round pick if they do move down.
Yeah. And I mean, and piggyback also on what you said earlier with Calvin Ridley, I think he'd be an ideal fit too, because I mean, the receiver situation is quite the mess. So, I mean, if he's there, I think he'd be a pretty ideal fit, even though you have Dante Pettis, as we know, wide receiver 1. But I think getting a guy like Ridley would definitely help this team and Alex Smith. But if they were to move back and they were to get some extra picks, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw, somebody like Pettis or, maybe an Anthony Miller in the mid rounds going to them. Moving to the Packers, though, at 14. I mean, it's shocking to see the Packers at 14. They're always in that 20 range, playoff team, taking the NFC North. Obviously, not having Aaron Rodgers definitely hurt this team, but they're picking 14, 45, 76, 97, 129, 172, 206, and 213. So they've got plenty of picks, and I think they're going to stay put with probably most of these picks. And they just added DeShone Kizer. They moved on from Randall, their corner. Corner on the board. We've talked about Harold Landry being the guy this whole time. I think it's ideal, but is it Landry or bust, or is it cornerback or bust?
I think cornerback is a definite need. This is 3 straight teams out there we've mentioned that need a corner. So cornerback's gonna be a need for all of them. And like I said, even looking past Ward, a guy like Jair Alexander, Isaiah Oliver, who knows? I think cornerback is pretty deep. But I think if Harold Landry is on the board, and I heard Trevor Sikkema say this at Tampa Bay Trey, if Harold Landry's on the board at 14 and the Packers don't take him, they took the wrong guy. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter who else is on the board. He should be their number 1 target. And they need pass rush, opposite Clay Matthews. And Clay Matthews kind of moved away from the edge. And I think Harold Landry, like I said, I have him edge 1. He's got to be their number 1 target. If he's gone, then corner could be in play, or maybe even a guy like Marcus Davenport, or whoever else they would have as like that third best edge player.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, with the money that they have wrapped up in wide receiver, Devontae Adams at $10.5 million, Randall Cobb at almost 13, Jordy Nelson at 12.5. One of these guys, Adams is staying. He just signed the extension. I would think Cobb is on his way out. But then again, maybe Jordy Nelson just because of some health concerns. But I wouldn't be surprised if they moved on from one of these guys. But then again, it wouldn't be surprising if they stayed with one of these guys because, like we said, if Aaron Rodgers is playing, they're in the playoffs anyways, and they still have $17 million in cap room, so they've got plenty of flexibility to do whatever they need to do. And if that means go out and get in, a cornerback, DRC just got cut today from the Giants. I'm not saying that's where he's going to go, but I think he'd be a nice veteran fit for them, and they have a tendency to do that. You look at what they did with Julius Peppers; they added him. He had a nice little run to, kind of the closing end, the back end of his career away from the Panthers and the Bears. And I think DRC would be another one of those guys. So it'll be very interesting to see. And before we kind of close this thing out with draft options and everything else, free agency is going to be here before we know it. We'll be doing a show on Wednesday, so I'm sure we'll have plenty of stuff to talk about. We'll have Ben Albright on there with us if everything goes accordingly. So we'll have plenty of fun stuff coming up. But what is something that you're predicting for this week in free agency? Go ahead.
Real quick, I do want to talk about. I just want to mention that the Packers do have Kevin King waiting in the wings in that corner, and he's, I think he's a pretty talented guy, and I think if they could get a veteran corner, kind of a little bit cheaper, for a pretty cheap price, a guy like DRC who's a little bit older, that could be good not only for their depth chart, but also to kind of to help Kevin King along. So I think their ideal scenario would be a guy like Harold Landry at pick 14, and sign a veteran corner, and then go from there. At 45 and 76, as opposed to taking a corner in the first and then signing an older pass rusher. That's just the way I think as far as their veteran presence, helping out their younger players. But as far as this week, big prediction, kind of put me on the spot.
I know we didn't even discuss it, so that's why I'm loving it. Because look, man, you're throwing hot takes at me left and right. Like, we're at a diner down in Mobile, and you're throwing pancakes with pickles on my plate, and that's what they do down there at the Waffle House, by the way. But
really?
Yeah, dude, I got a sandwich, and at the Waffle House. I was not feeling great because the night before was a rough one. And I mean, I was starving and I got my food last and I got this breakfast sandwich, which was fantastic. But like on the plate was a thing like a pickle. And I was like, what in the world is a pickle doing on my plate with my coffee and everything else? And it was not what I was expecting, but it was still good. But like I'm saying, you're throwing, hot takes all the time with Harold Landry, edge rusher 1, Dante Pettis, wide receiver 1. You're a subtweeting guru. I
find subtweeters. Let's
same thing. And I got to put you on the spot as far as a free agency pick. I mean, we got to predict something here. We're predicting, NCAA basketball stuff for the football fans out there. What do we got?
I'm going to go with.
It's tough, man. I mean, my thought, Ndamukong Suh is going to get traded. That's maybe not a big surprise, but I think he's going to get traded. And I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it was Cleveland, but I think they're going to move on from him.
Yeah, I think, and some teams have kind of, that's been in the news that like he might get traded. They're thinking about trading him, that type of thing. I think that we could see a player. Maybe I think a guy from the Steelers is going to get traded, like a big name from the Steelers, because they're like 13 million over the cap, and like that's kind of a team that no one's really talking about. That maybe they can move like a serious piece that people don't really expect. Maybe Le'Veon Bell.
You think they're going to move on from him?
I don't think they're moving on from him, but I wouldn't be surprised. I'll say that.
I mean, you're not wrong, but at the same time,
I'm not right.
You're not right. I mean, what about like Martavis Bryant? Would they move on from him? I think that seems like maybe a marriage that's going to go away. They did get him last year. What about Joe Hayden? I mean, he's eating up a lot of cap space, and he's not fantastic, but he's not terrible.
I think he performed pretty well for them. In his time there, it was definitely better in Pittsburgh than he was in Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
He had started to just. I don't think he even cared at some point.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think Malcolm Butler. I think he's going to be an option for New Orleans if they can find the cap space. They tried to sign him to a deal. Was it last season or 2 seasons ago? So I think that he's going to get moved. He's definitely not going to re-sign in New England. A guy like Albert Wilson will probably get a bigger deal than you would expect for a 5'9" slot guy. Than a guy like Paul Richardson, I think, is going to get a little bit more money than people realize as well. So I think as far as that goes, and I think Willie Snead. I've talked about this on Breaking the Draft podcast. Willie Snead, I think he's one of my favorite free agent receivers, and I think if he doesn't get re-signed to the Saints, which I think they should, but I think if they don't, he's going to be a huge help for whatever team he goes to. People don't realize, people forget about this, but the Saints' last drive of the season, they had 4th and 10. They had 3 straight complete passes. They had 4th and 10, and they Drew Brees, and they're losing in the game to the Vikings. They threw to Willie Snead on 4th and 10, and he caught it for 11-yard gain. They went down, scored, took the lead, and everyone forgets about it because Stephon Diggs made that incredible play. But I think that he's a guy, even though he was suspended, even though he was hurt this past season, for 2 years he was a very reliable target for Brees, and I think you will easily get 2015, 2016 production out of him, and he's going to be like probably the low-key best signing of the offseason for whatever team he goes to.
Right. I mean, I've talked about this with Bryce Rossler before, and we talked about Albert Wilson a ton, and I think he's going to be a nice sleeper for somebody. And I mean, who that is, I don't know. Maybe Miami, but obviously they've got a ton of cap issues, so that'll be interesting. But I mean, Washington's going to be in the market for some receivers. I would think.
Chicago too. Chicago.
Yeah. So I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Willie Snead ended up on one of those teams. Albert Wilson ended up on one of those teams. There's another one too. Another receiver. His name's escaping me right now.
Yeah, Tavares King's a free agent. Paul Richardson. Sammy Watkins.
I was going to – there it is. How could I forget Sammy Watkins? Sammy Watkins to Chicago. That was something I was seeing popping up quite a bit.
Yep, and then they're going to draft Dante Pettis and have some fire going on the receiver.
Oh, man. That's insane with Dontrell Inman leading the way. That's going to be awesome.
Well, we have Kevin White and Cam Meredith too.
What about Wilkerson? I mean, where is that guy going? I mean, he's been kind of all over the place as far as visiting teams. Where's he going?
I mean, that guy screams Raiders, right?
Yeah, probably, right? I mean, that would seem ideal.
Just as far as like, his reputation and the reputation of, the Raiders being guys who take on some troubled players, or like even the Bengals. I don't know if Gruden will keep that going in Oakland. But I think, Wilkerson is definitely, he's a guy who's had some issues. He's had some disciplinary issues, and I think that he needs a good situation. Like he needs a Green Bay Packer or a Pittsburgh Steeler or a New England Patriot type of environment, but instead he's going to go to Seattle or Cincy or Oakland, and it's just going to it's never going to get better.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I talked about Ndamukong Suh. That was going to be my pick, and I'll end my prediction with this. I'm going to say Jimmy Graham. He goes to your squad, the Patriots.
That would be phenomenal.
That's my pick. I'm going to say that. I was thinking the Jets, like where maybe Teddy Bridgewater and Jimmy Graham go to the Jets, but I'm going to say Jimmy Graham goes to the Patriots. I'm locking that in. All
right, write that down. Put it on the board.
You got anything else? Anybody else? Any comments, questions, concerns?
No, I think that's pretty much all I have for the day.
No more fun facts for Rhode Island?
Rhode Island fun facts.
We don't need any more.
No, I got one.
Oh, come on.
This one's easy. This one is one of those that everyone in the state knows, but people don't realize. Rhode Island is not only the smallest state, but it has the longest name out of all the states.
That's weird.
Yeah. People, the second part of that is the full state name is Rhode Island and Providence Plantations. So that is like 30-something. Yeah, that's like 30-something letters. Or like 28 or something. I don't know how much it is, but it's a lot of letters. So that's actually the full name of the state, and it's the longest name out of all the states, and it's the smallest state. So
that's insane.
There it is. Yeah.
Folks, I don't have any Michigan fun facts except for, the Upper Peninsula. It's beautiful. So if you ever go out there, check it out. It's great. That's all I know. But yeah, so busy week ahead. Free agency's kicking off here in a couple of days. We'll have Ben Albright with us on Wednesday to kind of go over some of the stuff and talk some of the draft. And really that's all we got. So for Brad Kelly, I'm Russell Brown. This is Cover One, the podcast.